Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Influential Motherhood podcast, where we talk about motherhood, work, self-care, and how moms are changing the world. I'm your host, Melissa Duncan, and I'm just chugging along toward Christmas. We have our decorations up and ready, and for probably the first time ever, my shopping is almost done, and the presents I've already bought are wrapped and under the tree. But you should know that this is not normal for me, but I have been feeling the speed of this year's timeline toward Christmas, and I'm trying to stay on top of things. So today's episode is a conversation with one of the most incredible women, April Robson. She has 3 beautiful kiddos, and in the summer of 2018, her middle child, Charlotte, was diagnosed with a terminal genetic illness. April has poured into her family in the last year and a half, choosing joy and making life beautiful for her whole family. Even if you've heard or followed April's story, she's giving us a fresh perspective today, talking about how she navigates the holidays with a chronically ill daughter and 2 other children. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Today on Influential Motherhood, I'm here with April Robson, and she's a mom of 3 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and has a popular lifestyle blog and has for years called Smidge of This. And April's family has been navigating their second year of a life-changing diagnosis for their second child, their daughter Charlotte. And so today we're going to talk about navigating the holiday season with a chronically ill young child, balancing that with the needs of the siblings, and appreciating the small things through the holiday season and focusing on what really matters. So, April, thank you for being here to share your story and to talk with us about these things around the holiday season and having a chronically ill child.
It is my pleasure. Maybe not exactly what I thought I would spend my life talking about, but it has turned into something that I really do love talking about. So thank you so much, Melissa, for having me.
You're welcome. And it's an honor to have you here to share your family's story and what you all have really done in the last couple of years to be able to spread awareness about not only her diagnosis, but about joy, which we will also be talking about. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your family and Charlotte's diagnosis?
Sure. So I am, my 3 children right now are young and crazy and wild. I've got Camille, who is 5, and she's in kindergarten. I have Charlotte, who is 3. If the girls knew that I was leaving off the and a half of their ages, that would probably
that's a big deal.
Yes. That is a big deal. It would shake them to their core. So I've got a 5.5 and a 3.5-year-old, and I've got a little boy, Lachlan, who is almost 1.5. So I've got this kind of perfect 23-month, 25-month split, and they are stair steps and the joy of our lives.
Yes. Oh, they're all 3 absolutely amazing. After Lachlan was born,
yes,
is when a lot of this journey really started to kind of pick up for you all. Is that right?
Oh, yes. The wheels started turning really fast. And I would say it was right around maybe 16, 17, 18 months old for Charlotte, when we just started realizing that she never started walking on her own, which if you have parented a child or been, a concerned aunt, uncle, grandparent of a child, everyone has told you, don't worry about children doing things at different times. Every child is on their own path.
They'll do it on their own time.
Bingo. If I had a dime for every time I was told that. So, as Charlotte did not start walking at 12 months, 13 months, 14 months, it was kind of like this rising panic that I started feeling, because I just thought, how can this be an issue? I'm doing all the things with her. And so I started really ramping up what I was doing with her. I enrolled her in preschool to I thought maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not a great walking teacher. Maybe she needs to be around peers. We started physical therapy. I took her all around Charlotte, North Carolina, to try to get answers about essentially what I was doing wrong. I thought there has to be something with the way that I'm teaching her, or maybe I'm not giving her enough time or attention.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that we moms do to ourselves as we lay in bed at night and we try to point that finger back at ourselves and say, where am I going wrong here? So I ended up, we never got answers, and I ended up just kind of thinking to myself, things will get better. And so we continued on with our path. I had Lachlan on June 6th of 2018. He was our little surprise baby. We were team 2 and done. And then, you know what they say about when you make plans.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, I cannot believe the way that life played out, because when he was only 2 months old, I had a team of doctors come into a hospital room. We took Shari to the hospital because we knew something big was happening, and we needed the best and brightest minds to try to, in a very critical feeling moment, to try to tell us what was happening. And I had a team of doctors come in and tell me that she had a degenerative neurological and genetic condition, meaning that my husband and I unknowingly passed this down to her, that was terminal. There was no cure, and that they were here to talk to us about ways that we could provide comfort. And Melissa, I truly, at this point, even though I had done so much for her and I had a sinking feeling, I still didn't think that the answer was going to be something that medicine, therapy, and a whole lot of prayer couldn't just fix. You know, I sort of knew it could be bad, but I really did think it was something that we could support her through in her life. I didn't think that it would be something where it was just like, this is it, period.
Yeah.
So, and then at that point, the doctors turned to us and they said, because this is genetic, you need to have your other children tested. And if that's not like just a 1-2 punch, I mean,
gosh, yeah.
Especially this 2-month-old son that we had, I'm looking at him like, oh my gosh, did I just give birth to you 8 weeks ago and now I'm going to be told that you have the same fate, you know? So fast forward a couple of weeks and a lot of heartache, and we found out both of my other 2 children are carriers of this genetic disease, but they are not affected by it. So life has changed dramatically since July 31st of 2018. And, you know, I sort of feel like one of those like blow up dummies that you give a big punch to, and then for a while it's kind of like bouncing back. Woo, 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 woo.
Just kind of like teetering back and forth.
Yeah. So like I'm still teetering, although I'll say that the teetering has gotten like less violent over time. Things are kind of evening out. So Shari is, she's still here. She's still smiling. She has lost almost all of her abilities that she had gained. So she used to walk while holding our hands. That's gone. She's completely immobile now. She's in a wheelchair or just, you know, laying in her bed or in our arms. And she cannot eat safely anymore, so she's fed via G-tube, tube that goes from a food pump into her belly. She doesn't talk anymore, which was that was a loss for me. Her last word was mama, so that was, when that one was the last one, I had to kind of mentally prepare myself like, all right, April, you need to etch these sounds into your heart. But yeah, we've kind of, we have found a new daily sort of balance of that new life that we've been given.
Wow. Well, you all have done it very gracefully, and that'll be part of our conversation today. But I remember that waiting period when watching from the other side of the screen, so to speak, when you said that your other two were being tested, and holding my breath and just thinking, Lord, like you said, you have this tiny baby and beautiful Camille, and what a gut punch it would be on top of the gut punch you had already taken as a family, for what that could turn into. And so I'm sure that it was just such a mixed, experience because it didn't make it any better for Charlotte's situation, but
right.
Being able to at least be thankful that your other two were not going to end up with the same diagnosis, because that would be taking everything to a completely new level. So you just shared kind of about what Charlotte's abilities are now and how she's experienced some regression. So as we're going to get into kind of talking about the holiday season and what that looks like for your family, but in, the last half of 2019, so not just during the holidays, but we're here in the last, the end of 2019. What does a typical day look like for your family? Just so we can kind of understand all that goes into what you do for your family, not just for Charlotte, but for your husband and your other kids, and making sure that the family train keeps moving, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes we chug along at a nice speed, and sometimes we like huff and puff.
I would say we all do that, so that's okay.
All right, so let's say that you come walking through my front door in the morning. If you're coming in first thing in the morning, you will probably be walking in with one of our amazing godsend nurses. We fought hard and continue to fight hard for support through these beautiful nurses that really are such a vital part of our family, and they keep that. They're there like shoveling the coal on to the train, keeping us chugging along. So most days we have, not all days of the week, but most days we've got a nurse that will come, and we can kind of provide like man-on-man coverage. So someone's attending to Lachlan, someone's attending to Camille, and then we've got a nurse that's there to help us with Shari. And so her basic needs in the morning are just like any kid. They need to be, gotten out of bed, fresh diaper. She's still in diapers, and that's just something that will be part of her story. And I hope she doesn't feel like I'm telling too much of her personal info, but we're just putting it all out there. This is a normal day in the Robson household. And at that point, the nurses just kind of give her a nice little once-over. They listen to her lungs, which is one of the most important pieces of our story right now, because respiratory illness that's a huge threat for us. So they'll listen to her lungs and listen to her heartbeat, and get her nice and fresh for the day. And luckily we've got nurses that interact really well with our family, so we try to kind of do everything together, because it's really important for me, for all of my children, to sort of be around each other and get that sibling interaction. So we do medications in the morning. Obviously, if we don't have a nurse, then we're the ones that are doing all of this. But for the majority of the days, it looks like having nursing help. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
And at that point, we are getting Camille off to kindergarten. We used to walk. Now it's getting cold, so a lot of times I'll drive her and drop her off. A couple days a week, my son Lachlan goes to like a mother's morning out kind of church preschool sort of deal. And Charlotte has various therapies that we do with her during the week. So we do speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. And we also recently have begun working with our local hospice, which is actually the first time that I've shared that. And I think a lot of the reason is because people hear that word and they think, oh no, what's happening? Like, I had to get over that myself and really start seeing them as a beautiful means of support during this time. So as I've kind of begun to see them in that light and accept them into our lives and stop ignoring their calls as they were calling monthly to check in with me for the last year. Like, ignore. It has been wonderful. So once a week, we have a check-in with our hospice nurses and that staff, our social workers. So basically, we have a lot of moving pieces and parts in our house all the time. So if you're one of those people, kind of how my husband tends to be, where you're like, oh, I just want to like have my family all the time, his head is spinning. He's like, oh my goodness, our house constantly has people going in and out, but they're all such a good means of support for us. So it is what it is. So during the day, I do some work from home, so I'll kind of fit that into my day as I can, and then Lachlan gets picked up from preschool. Camille comes home from kindergarten. The kids hang out together. The nurse leaves every day a little bit before 4, and then it's just family time through the time that I'm like, love y'all, mean it, bedtime.
Well, it sounds like y'all have at least found, I think it sounds like a kind of a good rhythm for your family, and it is probably not anything like what you expected this season of life would look like. But I'm glad that you were able to push for that nursing support that it sounds like was very much needed. And I mean, you know, I just try to imagine what things would look like for you all if you didn't have that kind of nursing support.
You know, there are a lot of families who absolutely do not have that kind of support. For some, it's a choice, and they say, hey, we want to do our own thing. I want to do, but with 3 young children, 5 and under, one with very specialized special needs, I just thought, you know what, this is going to be something that I'm going to say, we need to prioritize getting this kind of support. And it has been so good because honestly, like this morning I went to my therapist, and it was so wonderful knowing that that's a way that I could pour into myself for an hour and kind of link into some feelings and emotions and just get it all out, knowing that Charlotte was completely safe and well taken care of here at home with our beautiful nurse. So it allows me that balance essentially of what life would be like if she were in typical health and at preschool during these hours. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I'm glad that you're taking good care of yourself too. That's really, really important. So that's great.
I've had to learn that in the past year.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's another thing that, you know, if I can imagine has been crucial to navigating this journey over the last year and a half. So you're headed into your second holiday season with Charlotte's diagnosis. And so I'm curious, as we kind of pivot now towards talking about the holidays with, you know, all of these things that your family has going on, what would you say you learned last year as your first go around with the holidays that you're taking into account this year?
I slowed down last year, you know, and it was kind of a beautiful thing. I think before I probably had one of those like printable like, you know, Christmas bucket list kind of, you know, like we're going to do all the things. The only decent Christmas tree that we can buy needs to come from a mountain trip that's 2.5 hours away. And like Daddy needs to saw it down himself, you know, like, and it's funny how I've kind of, with our family, we've just turned inward now. And the things that I get excited about are the really just small, easy things. But there's still things that are really important for me. So, like making cookies. The old April probably would have I would have insisted on having some kind of homemade cookie recipe with the perfect little cookie cutters and yada, yada, yada. Now I understand that for our family, baking cookies probably needs to be about a 5-minute process.
Yeah.
I'm going to get the children into the kitchen. We are going to break apart some break and bake cookies.
Yep.
We're going to throw them on a tinfoil lined cookie sheet. Make sure to snap a great picture together because I do want to be able to show all the children when they're old. I want to say, look at you guys in this cute little moment, and get those cookies made. Bam. Beautiful experience.
Done.
So, yeah. I think I've just kind of lightened the pressure on our family a little bit this holiday season.
Yeah. Well, when I was thinking about this conversation that we were going to have, I was thinking about how there is so much, and I use this word with air quotes, hoopla, and pressure, I think, for parents to make the holidays magical, whatever that means, for their children. And I don't know, I feel like part of that comes from things that are actually really great, like Pinterest and Instagram, but I think it creates some internal pressures that a lot of us maybe don't even realize that we're dealing with.
Right.
But I think, it's like, oh, well, I've got to live up to these standards of what constitutes a magical Christmas.
Yes.
And, things like when I was thinking about this earlier, when you hear people say, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Well, if you think about the reason for the season, if you're a Christian and you believe that that we're celebrating Jesus's birth, then it is the most wonderful time of the year. But I also think that phrase can carry with it some expectations that we just can't always, our lives don't live up to, in terms of it being this happy-go-lucky, magical season where, all of the hard things in life just disappear, because that's not how it works. And for a lot of people and a lot of families, it's not really the most wonderful time of the year.
Oh, it's difficult because if you think about it, what are some of our biggest stressors, like money, estranged family relationships, all these, we're just dumping it all into one month.
And just stirring it up. It's like, let's put it all in one pot and just stir it up together.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that carries a lot with it. And I was thinking about your family and, I think you do a great job still of making not only Christmas and this holiday season, but I've watched you over other holidays and, how you have made those really special for your kids. But I was thinking about you and how you have a lot to manage without the pressure of the holidays. And so I just, I want to say that I think a lot of us recognize that in your situation and A, think you're doing a great job, but B, I think it kind of puts into perspective whatever pressures those of us who don't have a chronically ill child might be feeling. It's like, this really isn't that bad. It's not that big of a deal for the rest of us. So I'm also curious how you are balancing Charlotte's needs with the needs of the siblings who are going to school and maybe hearing stories from their friends about what their friends are doing. I know mine come home and talk about the other friends' elves and things. So I'm like, oh, that's their elf. That's not our elf. But how are you balancing all of this for all of your children?
Let me tell you a story just right now about the elf and what happened today. So I went over to a girlfriend's house today, and she has this tree up in her foyer with, today she's got 3 little girls. She had 3 little pairs of pajamas that had been kind of like thrown on the tree, and then the elf was hanging from the tree, and I was like, okay, that's really cute. The elf kind of delivered Christmas pajamas to her daughters, and she said to me, do you guys have an elf this year? And I was kind of like in my haughty way, like, oh, no, we're not doing that. I'm going like, I'm simplifying this year. I'm keeping it easy on myself. What do you think I heard 2 hours later when Camille came home from kindergarten? She said, Mom, some of my friends have an elf in our home.
Oh, no.
She said, I think that it comes when Santa wants to see how the kids are being. Do you think Santa wants to see what my behavior is? And I was like, well, now we're getting an elf.
Yes. And now you have an elf.
Oh, I have to go out tomorrow and buy one. So,
man.
Yeah, good times.
That's really funny. Well,
yeah, so
maybe your elf can be one that doesn't have to move around a lot because your kids are really good.
I need a lazy elf. If anyone knows where to get a lazy elf, that's what I need.
Yeah, put in an order for a lazy elf.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I just it's ever evolving. I really do try to simplify and focus on the small things, on the small blessings of the season. But with that said, I absolutely have very normal children, and I'm a normal kind of mom that wants to keep a smile on their face, and I'm probably going to get sucked into a lot of these sort of holiday traps as we do. So it's easy for me on one hand to say, oh, now that I'm seeing the world through this different kind of lens, I really want to make sure that every child is, we're not even going to do Christmas lists this year. We're just going to do thankful lists. No, we're still going to have Christmas lists. We're probably going to have whining on Christmas morning. I'd say that more than anything, our situation kind of brings me and my husband, it kind of brings us as parents back to that sort of maybe a good place in our hearts of like, this is fun, this is good, this is typical holiday excitement, but it's really important for us to sort of spend these moments knowing that, well, we and not anyone else, we're not guaranteed another day and a day after that. We just want to make sure that it's special and that it's heartfelt and that the kids do, they can ask for an elf, but they also know how to be thankful for the small things that we do have.
Yeah, that's really important. So I want to pause there because there's obviously a lot going on in your family right now. There's a lot of people in the home. And so I know you have, from what I see, online, you have kept Camille and Lachlan kind of very close to all that's happening with Charlotte. And so how much do you think they understand at this point about what's happening with Charlotte's health?
So I'll start with Camille first. She and Shari were very close before diagnosis. They shared a room. They took baths together. They would sort of talk back and forth with each other, which was just adorable to witness. After diagnosis, and especially as Charlotte started losing abilities, I'd say I started witnessing just a distancing that I think was kind of natural. Camille was seeing some things that were a little bit scary, like seeing the tube going into her sister's stomach, or even just natural feelings of jealousy. Why is Charlotte getting presents all the time? Why is mom always with her? Little things like that were coming up. And so I really have had to do this delicate balance of I never want her to think that I'm spending more time with Charlotte, but I also want her to know that when I do spend time with Charlotte, it's because it's really important. Charlotte is depending on that love and attention and affection as well. So I think I just have to make my time with each of them and then with them together really, really like concentrated time. And sometimes I'm there like scrolling Instagram and not being great about that. So, but other times I really do try to be very conscious of the way that I'm pouring into them. I also try to make opportunities for them to bond together, like baking cookies, or it may sound silly, but sometimes even just like speaking as Charlotte to Camille. So yeah, you're either going to think that this sounds sweet or that I'm totally Looney Tunes, but sometimes in a quiet moment, I'll just kind of say something like, "Hey, Camille," and Camille kind of understands that that's Charlotte sort of talking to her, and I'll say something like, I'm just thinking of something here, but I'll say something like, "Mom told me that your teacher said that you did really well in class today, and you were really, really kind to people, and that really fills my bucket, and I think you're a good sissy," or, something like that. And again, I know that this sounds kind of silly, but
it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I have to think about things from Camille's standpoint too. And as a 5.5-year-old, I have to sort of make that opportunity happen to make Camille feel like she's bonding with her. So Lachlan is so little, yet so big, but so young. Yeah. But honestly, I have seen a compassion in him that I have to attribute to what he has learned in his short little 18 months on this earth. So sometimes if Charlotte cries, or even if Camille is throwing a little bit of a fit, this boy will drop what he's doing, walk over to a toy basket and find the softest lovey in there and walk it over to whatever sister needs it and just drop it on their lap. And I'm like, who are you?
What a good little guy.
Yes. The sweetest thing. And so even though this is a really difficult situation for our family that is going to get infinitely times tougher and, pull on our heartstrings even more, I do see these sweet little compassionate times come out of the children that makes me feel really proud of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, it sounds like they're picking up on, I think what's most important about the whole thing is just that you all have to be there for each other. Yes. They don't have to understand the ins and outs of her diagnosis, but what they're seeing, their parents demonstrate is that y'all are a family unit and you're there for each other. And that's what they're picking up on. And that's the most important thing. Hey guys, taking a quick break to pop in and remind you to join my monthly newsletter where I share some personal stories from this season of my own life, some of my favorite internet finds, and a roundup of the podcast for the month. Go sign up for the newsletter at www.melissaduncan.com/join. Now let's get back to the show. One thing I've noticed in this journey is that you've done a really great job of capturing moments that include all of your children. And a lot of them are moments that, as I watch, sweet little videos of like Charlotte laughing and the other kids making her laugh or whatever, I think you had one with a balloon and kind of tickling her or whatever. And I think, wow, I don't know that I would have had the wherewithal in that moment to capture that, either because I would be worried about what, having to look back on that later, or just taking away from the moment. But as soon as I see those videos, I think I'm so glad that she's capturing those moments. So is that hard for you to do that? Is it something you have to kind of make yourself do, or does it come naturally to you to try to continue capturing what is your new normal?
It is harder for me to do it, and so many times I have to sort of think to myself, because you know what, I'll tell you, I have a horrible memory. It is so bad, so bad. I used to be a scrapbooker when I was in high school, college, and then a few years after college. And then that sort of evolved into blogging, and then that sort of evolved into just sort of sharing on social media. I think a lot of our stories followed the same kind of path. And so I have found that the capturing memories like that is the best way to preserve them.
Mm-hmm.
And I want, as the years go on, and we don't know exactly how much time we've got with Shari. We don't know it could be, from what we've seen with this disease, we could have months or we could have years.
Yeah.
Either one of those, to me, just putting it very plainly, has pluses and minuses.
Mm-hmm.
I want Shari here for as long as we can have her, but I also hate to think of her pain being extended and extended and extended. So I don't really know what the future holds for us, but I do know that I don't want to look back on this time and think, I hope we did cute things together, but it's all kind of a blur.
Yeah.
Or I hope that I really poured into my children on the daily, but it's all kind of a blur. And so I have found that by capturing those and doing it in a way, I guess the question then to myself is, well, why don't I just capture it for myself? Why do I share it? But for me, it also holds me to a certain level of kind of accountability. Like, I feel like if I'm sharing it, I'm that much more likely to continue capturing it. And also, I've seen some pretty beautiful and magical stories come out of the fact that we have shared our journey. Either people with chronically ill children as well, who I've just made beautiful connections with, or people with children in great health who say, wow, I was really mad at my children today. But learning about your story has kind of made me creep up into their bedrooms tonight and give them extra kisses on the forehead. And, so I capture the moments because I want to remember how hard we worked at making beauty out of something so difficult.
Yeah.
And I also know that with siblings that are so young while this is happening, I also want to show them down the line what good people they were, even in their youth.
Yeah.
I want to show them how they leaned in and that they did things with her. And some of those things might be very highly cultivated by mom. Lean in, smile, hold the cookies higher. But like, Camille won't know that. All she will know is that she is looking back saying, wow, I made cookies with my sissy. I bet that was a sweet moment. I'm glad that my mom took that picture to show me
because they won't remember it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great perspective to have, and kudos to you for doing that and to taking it to the next step, which is sharing it with all of us. So I think that is something that you're not going to regret. I don't think you will regret doing what you're doing.
It's been great so far because I'm already, even only, what are we, maybe about a year and a half in past diagnosis, I'm already looking back at moments that I captured and seeing some that I think to myself, I do not even recall, that snuggle or that, whenever that photo was taken. And I love looking back and being like, wow, that was a crazy time of my life. I felt like everything was falling apart, but look at that sweet moment. It happened.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. So we talked a lot about what you've let go of during this season and how you've slowed down, but I'm sure there are still some pressures there. So we talked a little bit about the elf that needs to be summoned.
To get that elf.
So we need to summon an elf, but
right.
Other than summoning the elf, what kind of pressures do you feel this season as we enter the holiday season and it's kind of round 2 for your family?
Well, there are just, there are certain things that need tweaking for us to do. So let's say, for example, visiting with Santa, which is something that we all do for all of our kids. I love seeing Santa.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful moment, but I have new worries. So before when, let's see, the year that I was pregnant, before diagnosis, I took Camille and Charlotte to the mall. We stood in line for about 30 minutes. I'm doing the typical like, hey, look at this video on my phone. Now the idea of having Charlotte sitting there in a wheelchair, certain things going on with her, like maybe she's having a hard time managing her secretions, so she might be choking or coughing or gagging a little bit or something. We may have to deal with like, okay, there are other children that are staring. It might be a little scary for them. These are things that are now crossing my mind where I just think, we can't really do that. So what's a new way that we can make that happen so that we're not exposing her to germs, so that we're not putting her body through so much stress and duress of being out? So this year, Santa is so kind. We are going to be FaceTiming with him, which I am really excited about.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes, and then we've got a few other opportunities to meet the big guy in the red suit that are in smaller, more sort of curated situations that are better for families like ours. So we're looking at things just kind of in a different way, or traveling to be with family for the holidays is something that a lot of typical families may look at and think, oh, I'm really dreading this road trip. My kids are going to be whining in the car. I don't want to stay in a hotel with my family. No one's going to sleep well. And I'm over here like, I would give my right arm for that. Like, I would love so much to put my children in the car and to drive 8 hours to see family and stay in a hotel room with them, but that's not feasible for us. So now we're looking at, okay, let's do a day trip to visit family and drive there and back in the same day. And also ask our family, like, please tell us not to come if someone has a cold. So
yes.
you know, it's I still want to do all the normal things. I just have to kind of take a step back and look at ways that I can creatively tackle these scenarios and make them work for our new family dynamic.
Well, those are definitely things that help, like you said, keep it in perspective for the rest of us and the things we might be dreading or feeling some pressure about, and that's important to keep in mind. So as we start to wrap up, as I think this has been so helpful, first of all, in just hearing what this season is like for your family, not only big picture, but literally the holiday season. And so what would you say as the mom of two children who don't have a terminal illness and one who does, what would you say are some of the most helpful things that friends and loved ones can do for a family who they might know who has a chronically ill child?
Oh, I love that question. And I have to say, I have some of the best friends. I mean, friends who they're not walking this path, but they get it and they want to hold our hands and walk beside us. So
yeah, that's so good.
It is so good. It is so vital. I think just really the flexibility that a lot of my girlfriends give to us is so wonderful. For example, I've got this with my best friend and our kids. We sort of have this long-standing tradition of going downtown, and we've got these animated bears that sing Christmas carols.
Oh, yeah, the bears.
You know the bears.
Yep.
And then it's connected to the Ritz-Carlton, where they do this beautiful, like, life-size gingerbread house. And so when my friend said to me, okay, can we do this year? Of course, all of my needs are so different now. And some of it, honestly, is just based around having Camille in kindergarten, So I'm like, well, this is Camille's school schedule and this is Lachlan's school schedule. And these are the days that we've got a nurse that could come with us. Because I think it'd be a lot for me to try to do all 3 kids with me. I kind of feel like I can do anything, but I also have to recognize that that is a lot. Like getting them downtown, the parking deck situation.
Yeah. Oh,
Lachlan is like running everywhere while trying to push a wheelchair, all of this. So when it came to finding a time that we could meet all of those needs, I threw out like one date and time to her. And she said, yep, that's it. That's when we'll do it. So she just, with her own family, showed me so much flexibility and dedication to making that work. I think if you think about the things that another family, that may be really hard on another family, and then just try to head that off or have a solution, it's always great. And, I had another mom friend who knew that I was trying to find this kind of cookie the other day that Aldi sold out of. Next thing I knew, she just dropped them off on my front doorstep.
Oh, my goodness. That's amazing.
It was the sweetest thing. I mean, it probably cost her like $4, but it actually, that little moment right there, single-handedly allowed me to make that cookie baking memory with Camille and Shari together.
Yeah.
So I think instead of looking at like big, amazing things, just really thinking about those memory-making opportunities and how we all may be able to pour into each other and provide those for each other.
Oh, that's so good. What great friends you have.
They're the best.
Thankful for that for you because can you imagine doing this journey without them?
No, and I know that a lot of people do. They find themselves in this situation where they are at a dire time in their lives, whether it's a medical condition or what have you, and maybe they've just moved to a new city, or if they live in a very small area where they don't have a lot of connections. There are sisters and brothers of ours that are struggling like this all the time. And, I know that our situation has made me try to really look out and find people who just need someone to say, like, this time of year is undoubtedly difficult for you. I would love to do XYZ for you. May I?
Yeah.
It's a nice way for us to support each other.
Absolutely. Just stop in all the chaos and just remember that those that's what's really important, right?
Yes.
If we forget to move the elf, whatever, but it's all about loving on other people and that's what it's all about. So
yes. And I think we got this sweet little, the giving manger is something that we've implemented this year. So although I'm super stoked for this elf that I need to get tomorrow, we have this other little item that I keep on our kitchen table called the giving manger. And it is based around you add in a piece of straw each time one of your children or a family member does an act of service for someone else.
That's great.
And so you keep on adding in these small little pieces of straw into a manger. And then the idea is that we are trying to fill it up and make it comfy, cozy. And on Christmas morning, the kit comes with the little baby Jesus that you put in the middle. And so it's been a nice way for us to sort of stress that within our family and talk about the importance during the season of serving others.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. As we wrap up and are reflecting on all that you've shared about the holidays and just this season of life for you and your family generally, is there anything that I've missed that I didn't ask about that you want to share in terms of the holiday season and what it's like for your family during this season of life?
You haven't missed anything, I think more than anything, I would just reiterate to myself at the same time that I'm saying this is we should all just give ourselves just a pat on the back. We are working really hard to provide these magical moments for our children, but if we really take the time and reflect back on what we remember from the holidays, it's so much about the love that you feel, the way that your mom and dad look at you, the way that they listen to you when you're telling stories, or, just really kind of developing those beautiful moments of just snuggling on the couch or sitting in front of the fire. So I'm going to try really, really hard this season to lean into that and hopefully have some great time with my girlfriends as well, because that is the best medicine.
Yeah.
And just really, really focus on those small blessings, because this time next year is going to be here before we know it.
Yeah,
and our kids are going to be scooting further and further away from us on the couch.
Oh. Well, hopefully not for a few more years, right?
I know.
I know. It is crazy how fast it's going, but I think we are in a sweet spot, and I'm grateful for what you've shared with us today in terms of kind of navigating it with all of your children and your family and everybody that supports you all. And thank you for sharing your story in, kind of in this context. I know you've shared it on a few other podcasts, and I think this perspective is really helpful, and I hope will help others who may know someone who's going through a similar challenge, and how they can help their friend or family or loved one who might be going through something kind of similar.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope that everyone just has a beautiful, love-filled holiday.
Oh, thank you, April. And before we go, because you do such a great job of sharing your beautiful family, your family's beautiful journey online, remind us where we can find you and follow along for those who might be hearing your story for the first time.
Absolutely. So my main sort of family account is Smidge of This. And then I do keep one that is a little bit more dedicated towards our journey with what we're going through with Shari and her health, a little bit more of the daily snippets of life, and that one is Charlotte's Joy.
Love it. Love it. And that's all on Instagram, and I will link it in the show notes for those who might be driving down the road and they don't need to be trying to find you on Instagram while they're driving, but
that's right.
We'll make sure they can. And April, just Merry Christmas to you and your family, and thank you for sharing your story, and I hope that you'll have a lovely, special holiday season together.
Thank you, and same to y'all.
Thanks. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you'll connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Influential Motherhood. If you enjoyed this episode, it would really make my day for you to give it a 5-star rating and a written review in the Apple Podcast app. You can think of that as your Christmas present to me, because leaving a review helps other moms find the show so they can be inspired too, and it really means a lot to me. Have a wonderful week, friends.